So I've got another free one for you today. Today we're looking at the Versilian Studios Chamber Orchestra Community Edition. Let's check that out. Okay, just first up, just a little bit about the Versilian Studios. They do have paid products. If I go back a page here, you can see they have standard edition, which is $99, and a professional edition for $229. That has, each one has more instruments than the last, and the two paid products you use in the full contact player. Now I'm going to be talking about the community edition today, which is the free one. So let me go back to it here. Come on. Okay, this one, it only has, what was it? I think 19 instruments in it. But it has several formats, including a contact, which I downloaded this Big Cat's Sketching Chamber Orchestra, and the people over at Big Cat's actually did a pretty good job providing several instruments. You have, they did multiple versions of each instrument. Like, for instance, the flute has not only a mod wheel patch, but it also has a velocity sensitive with key switch patch. So that was pretty nice of these people to go through and do all these coding and all that for it. The one downside to the orchestra in general is I needed, for the tune that I'm going to have at the end here, I needed chimes, and there's no chimes. So I was going to try to do some sort of cheat with glockenspiel and pitch it down, but then I decided if there's no chimes, there's no chimes. So I'm just not going to use it. So yeah, that's just a quick little overview of the of Versilian itself. So now I'm going to jump into Cubase and start going through some instruments. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a few of the instruments here. In the grand scheme, there's more bad than good, but it's really hard to nitpick a free orchestra. It's really hard to kick a free orchestra. You know, it's free. So I guess these will be nitpicks, I should say. So there were a few good instruments. I didn't think the brass was terrible. And the violins were certainly better than the cello and basses, or the celli and basses. I felt like the basses and the celli had a little too much of a bark on the bow, like a little too much of that initial bow strike on each of the notes, whereas the violins and the violas also seem to have a little more of a legato flowing nature to it. The basses are also only presented in solo instruments, so in the grand scheme it didn't really matter. I just went with it, but I thought that was odd. So yeah, so let's just take a look at some of these. So here's the bass. Let me start this thing recording. So here's the bass. Like I said, it has a little bit of a bark. It's not as bad here because I've got the reverb turned on, the built-in reverb. It actually has quite a few reverb settings, which is nice. And I just went ahead and loaded the velocity sensitive key switch patches, but I'm just playing through legato. And so to me, it felt like I hit all those right about the same, yet it was the velocity sensitivities all over the place. Let me see. Let's go into the violin. So, as I said before, I feel like the violins have a much smoother sound. There's not that aggressive bow noise on each of the notes. Okay, and as for the brass, they weren't they weren't horrible. The trumpets I thought were decent enough, and the horns were decent enough. None of this stuff is going to replace Cinesamples or East West, or if you have any of the Spitfire stuff, it's not going to replace it. But to throw this on a portable rig, or I don't know, a portable rig, or just a computer without a lot of power, it might be worth checking out. So let's keep going here with the trumpet. So maybe a little 80s synthy, you know, like an old ARP or something like that. But, you know, could be worse. I've definitely heard worse. And here's the horn. So that one's the low notes, or the soft notes, I think sound pretty good. A good ensemble sound. Another thing that they have here is the woodwind. All the instruments have chord patches. So I've loaded the woodwinds here, and it's set to major chords. I just wanted to show this because it's kind of nice that they have it. Okay, one of the problems with the library is the timpani. I had to hit all the notes fairly hard, and then I had to lower the volume down because the low volume patches, the pianissimo patches, have a horrible buzz on them. There it is. I was going to say, oh no, it's going to make me a liar, but here's the G. Just some really weird artifacting there. And there's only this C, this kind of middle C. There's no low C either, which is also weird. But they do have rolls, which are pretty good. I had to use volume for these as well. And then last up, I just wanted to show percussion because they have it all together. So let me open this up. So they just have a full keyboard spread of everything. So, and the bass drum isn't the greatest. It almost sounds like a kick drum that they added extra reverb to. No round robin on any of these either, which is also, I guess, seems kind of odd even for a free library. Seems like they could have done something. So you do get the machine gun effect. And the cymbal also isn't the greatest. If I can find it. Oh, there's that timpani again. So that's the crash cymbal. It sounds a little thin to me, but Glockenspiel sounds pretty good. That's included. That's also separated out into its own thing. And then they have a bunch of other instruments on here. There's a gong down on the lower end. There's timpani on this also, so if you only wanted one patch open up. Oh. Cymbal rolls, 3 lengths of that. Actually, I didn't think these were too bad, the cymbal rolls, but the crash cymbal almost sounds like they just took 2 pieces of metal and hit them together, or really, really thin cymbals. I just want to show you a little bit of the user interface real quick. Like I said, I downloaded the contact version, and it's not a bad little user interface. There's a bunch of reverbs presented here, including a bypass if you want just a dry sound to throw your own on there. I used mostly really short, reverbs, and then I used east-west spaces for the master reverb for everything, just to glue it all together. But you can play around with the sustain, release, attacks. You have some EQ settings, and it shows what the key switch is set at down here. The green note below here is what it's set at. And then you've got spiccato, tremolo, pizzicato, arco loud, arco soft, or arco vibrato loud, arco vibrato soft rather, sorry. And then a legato. It's most of the instruments have these. They might be missing one or two on some of the like bass instruments, but for the tune here at the end, I really only used arco vibrato and just kept the short notes short, because when I just on the piano roll just kept the notes short, because when I tried doing the key switches I tried it on the cello, and the difference in volume between the arco and then the staccato or spiccato notes was such a pain, because I'd have to go draw the velocity way down and then draw it back up when I go back to arco, and so I abandoned that quickly. I figure for a piece it's kind of a 6/8 piratey, the da kind of rhythm that the staccatos didn't really need to be truly staccato. They just needed to be shorter than the legato notes. So I just went with that. And then the punchy snare drum kind of helped drive home the short, snappy beat of the instrument, or beat of the notes. So I just went with that. So this is the user interface. And actually, while I have it up here, you can see this is how the percussion is divided. There's just the master percussion file that has everything across the entire keyboard, the timpani, xylophone, marimba, and glockenspiel. Hope you found this interesting, and maybe can get some use out of some of these videos that present some of these free libraries. I like looking for them, and I like playing around with them. You find some gems. I do feel like maybe I feel a little guilty for harping on a free library, but I did want to show you all its deficiencies, or at least the big ones that I found. I wanted to present it as true as I found it. Now, for the tune that I'm gonna play here at the end, I did add a stereo widener on it. It's because the tune sounded a little thin, and I added some east-west reverb to it, just to kind of glue everything together a bit. I'm going to play the final tune here for you in a second, and that'll be it for this. If you like these free these videos on these free libraries, check out these other ones out. I'll put a card up there, and I'll put the links down below. Remember, do the whole like, subscribe thing, and we'll see you on the next one.